pushing that.
Everybody got one?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yep.
Jordan.
Still old as dirt. Yeah, he's still old as dirt, but not kind of
All right, front page of lust. We're down at bottom, 1 Thessalonians 4, 3 through 5. Somebody read that, please.
It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control his own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the heathen who do not know God.
All right. If you go up there to Galatians and Colossians, under remedies, first remedy is to walk in the Spirit. Let the Spirit guide you, not the flesh. All right? Colossians 3:5, put to death, therefore, the things of your earthly nature. Put to death means bury them, walk away from them, leave them behind you. Don't set them on the mantle and look at them every day. Get rid of them. Take them to the landfill and let somebody dispose of them for you. Don't let them hang around. Don't let the temptation hang around. Now we get to 1 Thessalonians, and tell me what sanctified means. I told you about 5 years ago. Maybe 6. What sanctified means?
Purified?
In a way, yep. That's part of it. That's a piece of it. It's more than that. Sanctified means to be separated or set apart. So you're not any longer knee deep in the sludge. You climbed out of that life and you're separated yourself from it. You walked away from it. And now you're pure because you're not walking back and forth into it. If you remember when we studied Peter, some days he was Simon and some days he was Peter. And Jacob, some days he was Israel and some days he was Jacob. Abraham, he was Abram, then God called him Abraham, and he never called him Abram again. If you go back and look in Genesis, once Abram walked away from his old life and put his faith in God, he never looked back. He walked away from it, and he was always Abraham after that. So sanctified means to be set apart, not to be part of it anymore. Now that doesn't mean we can get out of the world. We got to walk through this world. We got to deal with people. I don't think anywhere in the Bible God ordained monasteries and monks. They took this verse and they said we got to leave the world. We can't be part of the world anymore. And so they went and they built their monasteries way high up on the mountains where nobody was likely even to happen by and tempt them. I took my daughter, Heather, to a college in Tennessee. And once you left civilization, you had to drive about 45 minutes to get to this place. I mean, you talk about backwoods and in the country. And once you left one of the Tennessee state highways, you had to drive about 20-25 minutes on county roads to find this place back in the middle of nowhere. And they tell me that at one point, several years ago, there was a sign in front of this place that says, let your children attend college here, there's not a sin within 40 miles of this place. I mean, there is nothing out there. I mean, it is in the middle of deep forest.
You're gonna need that address.
Huh?
You're gonna need that address.
Well, it is a ways out. But that used to be their slogan. Let your child go to college here. There's not a sin within 40 miles of this place.
For those
But it
college
doesn't work.
students, there's
It doesn't
always a
work.
sin somewhere.
Right?
Said when there's college teenagers, there's always a sin
There's
somewhere.
always going to be something going on someplace. And they wore evening attire to class. It was like prom dresses. The women were walking around. The men were the boys were in suits and ties, and the girls looked like they were in evening gowns, long down to the ankles. I mean, they looked like prom dresses. And first thing I thought is, I can't afford to buy her wardrobe if we send her here. And she looked at me and said, I'm not doing this. And I said, neither one of us are. We went ahead through the orientation and everything, and we packed up our bags and went back to Kentucky. But Don's right. I don't care how secluded you become, you still have that sinful nature. You still have that human propensity to go back to the way things were. There's still that nature that Satan is still trying to pull you back into that. But Sanctified says you separate yourself from it. Now that doesn't mean you can't go into a bar and minister to people. Doesn't mean you can't go into a bar and drink beer. But it does mean that you can't continue with drunkenness, and it listed a whole bunch of things there. You control your own body in a way that was holy and honorable. It means you set rules for yourself. I don't have anything wrong with drinking beer or wine. I won't drink whiskey. I won't have whiskey in the house. Wine and beer is a natural process. Fermentation is a natural process in creation. Okay? And it is for many, many years, it was a preservative. It was a way to preserve grape juice and whatever, so that it could be used later on, because they didn't have modern canning methods and whatever. Back there, the grape juice was kept in wineskins, and it had to last until the next harvest. And they diluted it down 6-to-1 when they drank it. The kids could even drink it. It didn't have enough alcohol in it to affect them. But you have to set rules for yourself. You have to tell yourself, this is it. If I'm drinking a glass or two of wine at somebody's house or a wedding or something, the minute I feel it, I stop. That's my rule for me. I'm not saying that's your rule for you. That's my rule for me. And if I go into a casino, we went to a destination wedding for my niece in Vegas, and one of the women wanted to play blackjack. Nobody wanted to play blackjack, so Janice said to her sister, Bill will go with you. Because I knew if I sat down at that blackjack table, Jerry Denbo would walk in. And you know, I fought him for 15 years over casinos, and that just wouldn't work. And Satan would just happen to have him there if I sat down. But anyway, we sat down, and I told her sister, I said, I'm going to get $100 worth of chips, and when I double it, I'm quitting, and when I lose it, I'm quitting. And I'm not going to play, I'm not going to get greedy, and I'm not going to be stupid. I will lay down $100 worth of chips, I'll play with you to then. And she lost her 100, and I won 100, and we got up and left, and I gave her the 100 I wanted, and we both ended up even, and it was all over. But I set rules for myself before I sat down. I'm not going to sit here all night long and get greedy, and I'm going to play this until it's not fun anymore. And I'm not going to lose my shirt. And we played, and we were there about an hour and a half, and then I left. But the idea was, I set rules for myself and I lived by them. I wasn't going to let gambling take charge of me. Wasn't going to do it. Now that's me. I know what I have to do. Those are not necessarily rules for you. You know you. Set rules that work for you. You know what your weaknesses are. You know what your strengths are. Let your strengths prevail. Let your weaknesses be controlled. Do those things. Was that it for that? Holy and honorable. Not in passionate lust like the heathen. Don't let your emotions control you. Let your mind control you. And let your spirit be in charge of your mind. Okay? And you won't end up in the middle of some worldly mess. 2 Peter 1, 3 through 4. Anybody?
According as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust.
Okay. All right. Where do we get the power to do this? To have victory over our lusts.
God.
Yeah. What's it say there? Divine power. It's divine power that gives us the control that we need. Divine power. Oh, going back to the whiskey thing. The reason I don't drink whiskey is it's manipulated. It's not a natural process anymore. And why do we manipulate it?
Make it stronger.
Huh?
Make it stronger.
Yeah, so you get drunk faster. Don't have to drink as much. Doesn't take as much. And that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Wine and beer, on the other hand, it's a natural process. Fermentation's a natural process, and if controlled, there's nothing wrong with it. The only reason to make whiskey strong is so you can get drunk faster. Bible doesn't say anything bad about taking a drink. Bible does say something bad every time about drunkenness. Okay. Drunkenness is not a virtue. All right, it's divine power. How do we get it?
Prayer. Prayer.
Prayer?
Knowledge of him.
Knowledge of him. Okay? How do we get knowledge of him?
Read the word.
Hmm?
Bible. The Bible.
Bible. How do you understand the Bible?
You.
Somebody teaches you. I don't know anybody that ever sat down and started reading the Bible and said, wow, that's cool, I understand every bit of it. What? I mean, somebody has to go through it and begin to understand it and then start sharing that with other people. A guy told me one time that he didn't need to come to Bible study because he was 65 years old and he knew everything about the Bible that he needed to know. He was an elder in a church. This church.
Obviously not, because the Bible says you're never going to know it all.
Do you think you're ever going to come to the point where you understand it?
No.
I mean, every time I prepare a lesson, I look at the verse that I've read 100 times and I say to myself, I never saw that in there before. Has that ever happened to you? A verse is very, very familiar and then you sit down and it's kind of quiet and you read it again and it's like one word pops out at you and you realize I never saw that aspect of that before.
I love that. I always picture God like sitting there waiting for me to get it and be like,
Bing. Yeah, I mean, I don't care how long I do this. I don't care if I live to be 200. The Bible is still going to speak to me. It is a living document. It lives and is applied to us as we develop maturity of understanding. Today I understand on this level. Tomorrow I'll understand on this level, hopefully. And will I ever get to the top level in this life? No. You start out down here, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's just like a kid that doesn't know how to read. Nobody's taught him yet. It doesn't make him a bad kid. He just hasn't been taught how to read yet. Well, it's the same way with Christians. You start out, you're a baby and you don't understand it, and then you begin to mature and begin to mature. Get up about here, you start to teach others what's down here. And as you grow, you pull them up with you, and then when they get up here, you're up here, and they start to pull the other ones up. And everybody is pulling everybody up along the way. Christianity is not a spectator sport. You have to be involved. And anybody that says, I know all I need to know about the Bible, is deceived. They're deceived. Satan has convinced them to stop growing in faith. And they will never know the true victory of walking in faith. They will never really know it. It will escape them. All right. Knowledge of Him that's called us to what?
Glory and virtue.
Glory and virtue. He keeps moving us up that ladder closer and closer and closer to glory and virtue. If we stop anywhere on that ladder, we stop growing. And we become stagnant. If you're out in the woods, if you're up on the mountain, and you need a drink of water, where would you drink? In the pool where it's standing still, or in the part where it's flowing down the side of the mountain?
Part where it's flowing.
Hmm?
The part where it's flowing.
Part where it's flowing. You never drink the stagnant water. Never drink the stagnant water. And it's cooler. It's amazing. You take a cup, same water, same stream. You take a cup out of the pool and it's warm. You take a cup out of the part where it's going down the hill, and the inertia pulls the heat out of it. It's cooler water. Every time. Every single time. That's an amazing thing. I've never gotten used to that. When we're up in Canada, if we'll hike back in to get a drink from the stream that's coming down. In the pool, it's warm. You put your hand in, it's warm. You put your hand in the part where it's flowing, it's 10 degrees cooler. It's more refreshing. It's more purified. All right. That we can be partakers of the divine nature. Our very nature, our very spirit can begin to become divine. Okay. Doesn't mean your flesh ever wants to give up, but it does mean your spirit can begin to have more control over the flesh and make it behave. But that's your choice. 1 John 2, 15 to 17.
Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust therefore, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever.
All right. Got to make a choice. Got to choose. Love the world or love the things of God. You got to decide which you want to do. It doesn't mean you have to go to a monastery. It doesn't mean you have to give up TV. But it does mean you have to think about what you're watching on that TV and what you're letting your kids watch. There's nothing bad about TV if you choose. I like Matlock. I like, I don't like the National Geographic channel anymore. I like the History Channel. I like to sit there and pick out their mistakes when they're trying to prove. The National Geographic, have you looked at a National Geographic magazine like this? Used to, you could look at it and you find out what's going on in the world and what it's like over in this little place in Africa. And I mean, you could learn a lot about the world just sitting in your living room. I picked one. I had a health visit, a health appointment at my doctor in first part of January, and I picked up a National Geographic. Every page in that magazine is either about evolution or about global warming. Every single page, every article from cover to cover. I went through the whole stinking thing and read the first paragraph and every time the first paragraph set the tone for the rest of the article. I didn't have to read the rest of the article. It was about evolution. I didn't have to read the rest of the article. It was about global warming. I don't watch National Geographic on TV anymore, and because it has a political agenda, and it's not about truth anymore. It's not about what's right or wrong or what's there even. It's about an agenda, and it's not my agenda. Now I think we need to take care of the earth. I don't think we should be polluting it with oil waste. I think the Bible clearly says that He put us in charge of it, and He told us to take care of it. And that, that is a real hypocrisy with evolutionists. How is that?
Evolution is it happens for it happens and you've got to deal with it. Whereas they're complaining now that, well, we got to do something. Well, if you're evolving, you should be evolving through this.
Right. The Bible says that animals shouldn't go extinct. Evolution says they're going to go extinct because we evolve. Evolutionists, when the last condor is getting ready to fall off the cliff, evolutionists should be pointing to it and say, "See, we're right. He couldn't keep up. The buzzard's evolved, and the condor can't keep up anymore. The buzzard is more efficient. He's smaller. He doesn't need as much food as that big condor." So that's proof that, no, they're running around saying, "Save the condor, save the condor." And they ought to be. But save the condor is a scriptural obligation. It's a creation obligation. God said, take care of the animals, maintain the creation. Okay? Evolutionists ought to be saying just the opposite. We're right, the condor's going extinct. Yes! No, they want to be evolutionists, but they want to live by the principles in the Bible, but not admit it. Now, they ought to want to save the condor. But do you see the hypocrisy there? They want to be evolutionists by employing the concepts of the Bible while they deny the Bible. Big joke. Big joke. So you got to decide, world or scripture, flesh or spirit, virtue or lust. It's our choice. We make those choices every day in what we read, what we watch on TV, people we hang around with, the things we allow to influence our lives. Everything in this world can be holy, or it can be abused. It's our choice. We can abuse the most holy thing and make it a bad thing. Shouldn't do it, but we do. Honey is great for you. It's basically natural sugar. Then there's the white stuff in the 10-pound package. And we took it and we purified it and we did everything to it, and it'll kill you.
You telling me I can't drink tea now?
I'm sorry, what?
You telling me I can't drink tea now?
No, you can drink tea. But it's best if you use honey or agave nectar or the brown sugar, the natural sugar. All those things are good. But the white sugar, we've turned it into a killer so that we can make more profit. That's the bottom line. Now, sloth. And then we go to wrath. And then the 7 deadly sins are over. Who suggested this?
Sorry.
It's not a bad study. It is 14 weeks of doom and gloom. At least when you're studying Romans, you have good days and bad. All right. Definition of sloth. Very simple. Very lazy. Very lazy. Sloth is the epitome of laziness. Sloth is the diploma in lazy. Sloth is as bad as you get. Sloth is just a sluggard sitting on a couch, expecting the whole world to take care of them, and well, and they're not going to do anything. If you look down there, there's a statement from Heritage website. I'm trying to give you a statement about sloth. Go ahead and read that.
Sloth is one of the 7 capital sins. It is the most difficult sin to define and to credit as sin, since it refers to a peculiar jumble of notions dating from antiquity and including mental, spiritual, pathological, and physical states.
Yeah. Sloth can cover a whole life. It can be your attitude, it can be your psychology, it can be your it can be physical, it can be mental, it can be it can be part of your relationship, the way you treat one another. Sloth can cover every aspect of your life. Some of the synonyms for sloth are laziness, idleness, indolence, slothfulness, inactivity, inertia, sluggishness, shiftlessness, apathy. See, some of those are mental, some of those are physical, some of those are psychological, some of those are relational, in relationships with other people. Listlessness, lassitude, lethargy. Some of those I don't even know what they mean. Turbidity, or stagnant, like at stagnant pool of water where mold begins to grow and bacteria begins to replicate. That's the water that will make you sick. Herbitude. Anybody know what herbitude is?
I was hoping you would.
Don't have a clue. That was a copy and paste thing, and now I'm looking at it thinking, why didn't I look those up? But I can tell you this, it has something to do with sloth and inactivity. What causes sloth? Judges 18:8-9.
And they came unto their brethren to Zorah and Eshtaol, and their brethren said unto them, What say ye? And they said, Arise, that we may go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And are ye still? Be not slothful to go and enter to possess the land.
What's going on here?
They went and searched and saw the land and then came back and said, don't don't be lazy about it and not go follow up and get it.
Yeah. There's 12 tribes. How many said, let's go?
2.
Huh?
Two.
How many said, no, we don't want to do that? Huh?
10?
10. 10 minus, or 12 minus 2. 10. Rest of you guys.
We thought it was a trick question.
Okay. So you've got these 2 saying, let's go. It's there. It's beautiful. The grapes, you can't even carry a cluster of grapes. 2 men have to put it on a pole and carry it to the vineyard. Literally, that's what it said. It was that God had prepared a paradise for them to go to. They had been in the wilderness for 40 years. And all they had to do was cross that river and take the land. Their first 2 battles, not one soldier was lost. Then they came to Ai, and 36 soldiers are lost. And that's another story, another study. But their first 2 battles, not a soldier was lost. They won the whole battle. And without a scratch. God had prepared the victory for them. Okay? They wouldn't go. They wouldn't go. Wouldn't cross that river. Why not?
Did they just get too comfortable to where they were?
Yeah, they were too comfortable. Every day they woke up and manna fell down from heaven. They just walked outside their door and scraped it up off the rocks and off the trees. Didn't have to work. Didn't have to plow the land. Didn't have to do anything. The quail would just walk into camp. They'd pick up however many they want, twist their heads off and cook them. Didn't have to hunt. Everything was just right there and in their hand. And they got lazy. They got slothful. They didn't want to go in. They didn't want to work for anything. For 40 years, they had basically just taken a stroll through the desert and had eaten every day without any effort whatsoever. And bottom line is, they had just turned slothful. They didn't want to put out any effort. I suppose there was some fear involved. I mean, they weren't warriors. And God said, go in there and take the land, and they knew these people just weren't going to give it up without a fight. But every time they were in the will of God, the victories were given to them, literally given to them. All they had to do was march around the wall, and the angels pushed the walls down flat. It didn't even crumble. They even had to crawl over the rubble. The angels pushed the walls down flat, and the Bible says they marched straight into the city. Now these walls were so high and so wide that they could have chariot races on top of them, 4 abreast. And chariot races on the top of the walls of Jericho. They were that wide. And when they blew that trumpet the last time, the walls were pushed down flat. And when they excavated Jericho, they found the city on one level, and they kept digging, and they found the walls underneath the level of the city. They were pushed down whole, flat, except for one corner. There's a big pile of rubble there. What was that corner?
That was the woman that helped.
That was Rahab's apartment. She lived on the wall. And remember, she let the spies out through a window down the side of the wall. That's the only piece of the wall that wasn't pushed down flat. The rest of the walls were pushed down flat. People lived in those walls. They were big enough for houses to live in. That's how big they were. And the Israeli army walked straight into the city and took the city. Didn't lose a man. Didn't lose a man. That was how easy it was, but they wouldn't cross the river and participate. So, what was the consequence? All the original people from those 10 tribes died in the desert. Their children lived to come back around and get a second chance. But all the people that were alive when they refused to cross the river, they all died. That was probably a benefit. If you were going into battle, would you want to go in with a bunch of 80-year-old people or with a bunch of people that was 40 or under? I mean, I think I would want the 40-year-olds, don't you? The strong, prime of life. You know, the 80-year-olds, well, they might get in the way. Although,
With God, anything's possible.
Joshua died at, what, 160-some years old, and he was still a warrior.
With God, anything's possible. Take a group of 80-year-old men in, and with him beside you, you could take him over.
You're right. They would have taken it just as easily if they'd have done it 40 years before. They just chose not to. They chose to walk away. And what was the consequence of it? Death. Death. All right. Proverbs 19:15.
Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger.
Okay. Slothfulness casteth into a deep sleep, and an idle soul shall suffer hunger. All right. What's that mean? When are you more alert? When you're doing something, or when you're sitting on the couch for 3 weeks doing nothing? Now, I don't want this to sound mean, but it's true. I deal with your kids on a certain level, and for a while I was in McNeil, is that her name? Mrs. McNeil? Yeah, the English teacher. She was in charge of drama at school. Well, she moved and went to Indianapolis, and they put me in charge of drama at the Springs Valley School. So, you know, you can imagine me, you know, a bunch of kids, especially those kids. You know, French Lick is about 50% of the people work, and about 50% of the people are on welfare. I know. I was postmaster. Twice a month, we got to deal with welfare because everybody came into the office and needed their check because they had to go to the hospital. And finally, after a while, I'd tell them, well, you might as well just wait until it gets to your house because 400 people came in before you and they're all over at the hospital now, so there's no big rush for you. Now that was sarcastic, and I'd do it again tomorrow if I had to, but bottom line is, you've got these two groups of people in class. Well, when you're in drama club, you've got their kids, okay? And I can tell you instantly which kids came from welfare homes and which kids came from working homes. The kids from working homes learned their lines, they did what you told them to do, they brought their clothes, their costumes when they were supposed to. The kids from didn't think they had to do anything. We'd be a week before the play and they didn't know the first act. But they wanted to be in the play, and if you said, that's it, I'm putting in your understudy, go home. And I fired some of them. I said, you can't be in the play, you haven't learned your line. And before I got home, my wife said, here's a list of people you need to call. And I called them, and we had a discussion, and then they called the principal. But the bottom line is, it's not only your problem, it's a problem for everybody around you because you're going to teach your kids to be the same way. And French Lick now has 3rd and 4th generation welfare families. And it's inherited. You are setting the example for your kids to be successful. And if you're slothful and if you just sit around on the couch waiting for your welfare check, what do you think they're going to do? And what do you think that's going to happen to the society? It not only destroys you, and it not only destroys your family, it destroys the whole nation. And that's why it's low on the list, but high in importance, because it bleeds into everything around you, and it pollutes and it destroys everything you touch. It's the Midas touch in reverse. Okay? And that's exactly what this is saying. It throws everything around it into a deep sleep. It's almost like, what's a good word? It's almost like they're comatose. And really they are. If you have to deal with them personally, like in drama club, it's like they don't even comprehend the words. It's sad. I feel sorry for the kids. I don't feel sorry for the grown-ups. I feel sorry for the kids, because they are never going to know the victory of achievement. Our kids are not that way. I'll do anything in the world with the kids in this church. I'll do anything with them. But you couldn't pay me $1,000 a day to go back to drama club at Springs Valley High School, because I can't change it. I can't make it better. That 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day I'm with them for 4 weeks will not change their life. It's got to be done at home. It's called parenting. And I'm proud of you guys, because you are honored by the way that children in this church carry themselves. It is a tribute to the parents in this church. I am proud to be here. And we'll have to finish this one.